My guest on the potty today is Jem Cooper. We first got connected after I gave her a shout out a couple of podcasts ago for her amazing results at my local 100K here in Brisbane, the Guzzler, where she finished third overall and set a new female course record, breaking one of the previous guests' course records, Holly Ranson, funnily enough. So yeah, we got talking, set up the date, and what intrigued me most about her story was she's listed on her Instagram profile as being a former professional ballerina. And straight away I was like, I need to know how you go from pro ballerina to now starting to take over like ultra course records and stuff like that. Like that's not normal. So I wanted to speak to people who aren't normal, which is a lot of us here in the ultra community. We've got a few screws loose generally. But I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Just seeing someone so young, ooze this confidence, self-confidence. She's highly intelligent. I know she's going to do great things in the sport because she understands, having been a professional in another sport, what it takes, the sacrifices that you need to be able to give in order to succeed. And now I think she's developed a really good system, and she's not even 30 yet, to be able to sort of just plonk this onto a sport that is still very much gaining its legs versus something like ballet that has been around for hundreds of years. So if you're someone who really enjoys hearing people's, life stories and how they go about overcoming a lot of different setbacks, from health complications to, just changing personal identities, all those sorts of things, this is going to be one that really resonates with you. And I just know that she's going to do something pretty special in the sport. There's an aura that you get about people and the way that they hold themselves. And I think Jem probably could have selected a multitude of different things to do with her life, some of which you will hear in the podcast itself. And I think you'll agree she would be successful at whatever it is that she did set her mind to. So I really hope you enjoy this conversation with me and Jem Cooper. Hello, mate. Thank you so much again for jumping on the podcast. I know when I first sort of gave your plaudits on one of my solo podcasts, I was very keen to sort of have you on after we had a bit of an interaction in the DM. So thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's always great to meet some people doing these podcasts in the trail world. I listen to them all the time. So yeah, it's really cool to be here.
Well, I think it's such a good medium for runners. We spend so much time out there, and sometimes it's nice to get out of your own thoughts and listen to some other people's thoughts and opinions and conversations. So yeah, I think podcasts in the long form serve our community quite well. Yeah, so it's good to know that you're
Absolutely.
also an avid podcast listener as well. So I guess for context, for people who don't know you or how we've come to link up here today, I guess I'll share that you podiumed at the Guzzler 100K event, which to my understanding was your first ever 100K.
Yeah.
So that's our sort of hallmark 100K here in Brisbane. I had a couple of clients out there, and as I was saying off camera before, I heard your name come through the PA and that you're on track to finish on a podium. And I was already blown away to hear something like that happening in real time, and spoke about your result on one of the previous podcasts, and then we sort of had that interaction by DMs, and sort of here we are. And I have a look at your personal profile when I was first sort of talking about your results, and I guess the first thing that I want to jump into is your background as a ballerina. I need to know more about that, because the first thing that sort of came to mind is, oh my God, she's picked two sports that absolutely fuck your feet up.
That is so true. Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think actually running is worse. I actually have to say, even worse than point shoes. My toes, I have less toenails than I think I did as a ballerina, but maybe it served me well. I've also have a few toes that I don't have feeling in anymore, so that's also useful when you're running downhill. But anyway, what a lovely way to introduce myself and my feet. Anyway, yeah, so ballet. I started ballet at 4 years old, kind of had seen Angelina Ballerina
Oh yeah.
in the library, and was convinced that I wanted to be a dancing mouse. And so I got mum to get me into some dance classes. And I had the most terrifying, at the time, but amazing ballet teacher that met me way back in the day. And we basically stayed together kind of through the whole of my career, which is a beautiful thing in the end. But early on, kind of about 7 years old, I started to do some more kind of shows publicly and did a few kind of grade exams as well. And I started to be noted by the Royal Ballet. And I then kind of progressed quite quickly. It all starts very, very young as a ballerina. So by kind of 9, 10 years old, I was in Elmhurst, which is kind of a feeder school for the Royal Ballet, and going up to the big city every weekend to go and dance there and get training. And then by kind of 12 years old, I joined a professional ballet school where it's effectively dancing all morning till 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and then doing a bit of school on the outside. And this is kind of crazy. By that stage, I was dancing 10, 11, 12 hours a week, which at that age is quite a lot. And you're kind of making career decisions, like professional career decisions, as to kind of where you're going to end up in the next 4 or 5 years. As you start to kind of get 16, 17, you're kind of joining professional companies. And so it's amazing, like, whirlwind of a childhood. In terms, there was half of me that was dancing at a pretty high level, being very, very mature for my age. And there was also another little girl in there who loved nothing more than being around on our farm chasing sheep. And I was a total juxtaposition, kind of like pink ballet tutus by week, and by weekend I was running after sheep and tackling pigs and building pigsties and mud dens and like all the kind of things, which is very much me through and through, I think. But unfortunately, in my kind of teenage years, I had a bout of pretty severe ill health, and was very, very kind of lucky to make it out the other side. And that was a really critical point in my dance career. At the age kind of like 13, 14, 15, particularly for girls, it's a really like key point as your body shape changes to this really critical training period, effectively. And so it really set me back. And there was kind of a path. The plan A was kind of to be in a professional company at 16, and when these things happen, your life takes a slightly different course. But kind of quite remarkably, I did get through the other side, and was able to start training a little bit, and kind of was in school, just kind of, I went back to a normal school at that point, but managed to land eventually a professional training contract at a ballet company over in London. And literally the moment I finished school, I went off there with the intention that this would be like a stepwise approach, getting another year of kind of consolidating my training before going back and trying again at the Royal Ballet, or maybe New York City Ballet was my dream as well. And in I walk to this company. It was a Russian ballet company, and pretty much everything you can imagine ballet shouldn't be was characterized by this place. And having been through the quite life-changing situation I had done as a teenager, and being able to walk away pretty much unscathed, whilst other people in the children's ward weren't so lucky, it just really opened my eyes to what I wanted from life, and also what I was giving up to be in that position. So at kind of 18, 19, I decided to close the door on classical ballet. So after the entire kind of the most of my life, that was who I was and what I was doing in my future. I kind of, quite literally closed the door, walked out onto the streets of London and went, holy smokes, like, what happens now as a kind of retiree before your 20th birthday? So that was an interesting chapter of me. Absolutely taught me everything I knew at that stage about life, the world, and the universe, and definitely where I learned a little bit about grit. So
Yeah, I'll bet. And I guess hearing that, experience, you know, from when you had those health issues when you were younger and then sort of found your feet again and became professional, went into the Russian theatre side of thing. What was going through your head as someone so young, coming out of the back of that sickness to then becoming a professional again and getting back into it? Like, how did you go about falling in love with things before it really turned and you wanted to quit completely?
Yeah, that's kind of a good question. I mean, I think there's a big piece of identity there. It's like who you are and what everyone knows you as. Like, I was a ballerina before I was Jemima, like every time. That's what people knew me as. And there was kind of like no other option. Like in my head, it was like, this is what I'm doing. And I suppose I've always been quite stubborn. And that was kind of the decision I'd made to be a ballerina. And that was what was going to get me there. I think the other thing as well, and a big piece of the like kind of the recovery and being able to come through what I did and as fast as I did and out the other side into kind of ballet again, was like, I just hate losing. Like, I absolutely hate losing. And I was so competitive as a kid always. And I was like, well, I'm not going to lose to this. Like I get to decide who, like, it was just, yeah, one of those things. So, but absolutely, like, nothing comes easy and nothing is a straight path. And there was a lot of people that said I couldn't, and a lot of people that said I shouldn't, or wouldn't, like all of the not. And I had to be just absolutely dead set on what I wanted and what I was going to do. And if it ended up that I couldn't do it or it wasn't the right path, I needed to make that decision. And I think I was also aware that whatever decision I did make would be the one I had to live with for the rest of my life. And so it needed to come from me and not elsewhere. So those kind of things, I think, were really critical.
Where do you think that personality comes from within you, that competitive side? You know, were you always someone that was sort of naturally inclined? Like, what were your parents like throughout this process? Were they like supportive? Were they there to push you? Like, how did that sort of dynamic help shape who you are?
An interesting one, and I get asked this quite a lot. I think I was definitely born like a competitor. Like that was always me from a little one. I mean, I had two older sisters, they're kind of 5 and 7 years older than me, so I was always kind of trying to catch up. I think also, like, I spent half my life with adults, even from a young age, like with my dance teachers, and, you know, making these quite big decisions and like being put in very kind of mature situations as a little one. So you're always kind of trying to keep ahead in some ways. My parents, you know, took me to ballet and things like that, but they weren't pushy parents at all. You know, we had a family and a farm and many other things like were, you know, going on as well that they had to deal with. But so I wasn't pushed from them, and this was very much driven from me. And it always was. I was always wanting more and better and kind of to improve myself. I was also very much of the opinion, like, there's this phrase we used to have on the wall in my ballet theatre. It was hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And I always felt that. Like, I was very lucky being born like a ballerina. There's a shape you are or a shape you're not. I had hyper flexibility everywhere. I had long legs, long neck, long arms. I was the right height, the right shoe size. It was just, I was lucky in that sense. And there is a big piece of that. And like, I can't deny that. Like, I was born very lucky for a ballerina. But I was very, very aware that there were people out there working harder than I did. And that was showing up when I wasn't, or were putting more effort into their kind of their footwork, or, you know, their stretching or something else. And I never for a second thought that I could get away with kind of half-assing it. So that was a big thing. And I think also the other big thing was I was kind of, blessed with the right body, and I had quite an extraordinary jump, which was kind of my thing. That was like my USP. I could jump incredibly high from a young age. Maybe where the Achilles strength or calf strength or something for running now comes from. But that was my USP, and I knew that was kind of like something that would turn heads, but I never ever wanted a freebie. So certainly from like a younger age, when the training schools are looking at you, they're looking for potential of the body. Like, what can we do to train you up to make you look like we want to in our quarter ballet, kind of the group formats and stuff, and how can we make you fit into our kind of like design or brand. And so sometimes when you looked a little bit like me as a kind of 9, 10-year-old, they kind of take you as long as you didn't look like you didn't run into people. You're like, they'd be like, this is good potential. But I hated that. Like, I didn't want a freebie. If I was going to get like, a result, it needed to be because I worked for it. So yeah, I think those things were all in there.
Yeah, and your siblings, were they dancers as well? Like, were you all doing the ballet thing, or were you solo dolo? Like, how did that sort of play out? What was the dynamic of you and your siblings like?
Yeah, I mean, I think they did do ballet classes from a kind of younger age, but they never really got into as much as me. Like, my family is now kind of active and sporty, and like we've always been an outdoorsy family, like lots of kind of walking, hiking, like I said, grew up on a little farm, so all out there. But they weren't as keen on sport when we were kind of younger. One sister is very academic and went on to be an incredible lawyer and kind of went down that route. She's really just has the most amazing brain. And my other sister is super kind of strong, and she's done a couple of ultras later, and very good at CrossFit and things like this, but really cool. Quite kind of different. We're all quite our own people, for sure. But yeah, so no one kind of went the ballet way quite like me.
And how did you fall into ballet? Like you said, you were sort of raised on a farm. Like, give me some insight on like whereabouts were you raised?
Yeah, so I came from a tiny town called Hereford in the UK, which is known for three things. Number one, really good beef. So Herefordshire cattle have like really great beef. Bulmer cider, which is like drunk all over Britain, and is where the Special Forces train, which is very cool as well. So actually, even some of the Australian Special Forces, I later found out. So there you go. But yeah, a little town in the countryside, kind of 30 minutes to the nearest kind of shop, 30 minutes to school, that kind of thing. We really were in the middle of nowhere. And we, my dad was in kind of sales and traveled around the world a lot. But we, when I was about 7 years old, I think we started a little small holding, and we ended up with 60 sheep and 30 pigs and lots of chickens and an amazing kind of field space. So, yeah, that was a lot of fun. And I learned a lot about kind of respecting where things come from and respecting your food and like, life and death of animals and all sorts of like just amazing, like it was an absolute treat as a child having that. Yeah.
Do you think that created like quite a good balance in your personality, dipping into the rural life and then into ballet as well, where I guess it's considered, I guess in British culture, like a lot of like high class, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, interesting high class. I'd be like, I wonder what you mean by that, but like, I think I really did keep things separate. Like it was actually like when I was in ballet, I was in ballet mode, and I spent hours and hours and hours at the ballet school and had lots of friends there. But when I left, I was just me, and I was just that kind of outdoorsy wild child as well. And I think that separation actually was something that allowed me to progress as fast as I did and go all in when I was all in, but have that separation. And I wish I could say the same for being that good when it comes to work and other things. I don't think I've been as good later in life, but certainly around my sport, like I didn't have a room full of ballet pictures or whatever. Like it was quite like my ballet bag and that stuff, but like it was a different side. And I think that just freedom, I think the creative energy being outside gave me also came through in my dancing. And yeah, so I think those were kind of, nice balance.
Have you always had that sense of like walking to the beat of your own drum, like from a young age? Like it seems like you're pretty independent, like you're not looking left and right, searching for influence from others. You seem pretty sure about like what it is that you want to accomplish.
It's a good question, and I think sometimes there's the outside and the inside. I think for many ways, yeah, I've always been quite independent, and I've really appreciated time on my own. Like I've never had a problem with being kind of on my own. I used to love taking myself off for long walks, and I'd go into my own world, maybe when I was dancing and training and things, and traveled around the world later, a lot of it on my own, and just met people along the way. So I've always been very independent and things. I think inevitably we all get dragged down sometimes by societal expectations, and certainly I've not done a lot like I was meant to, which is cause some friction and difficulty, and certainly self-doubt. Like you do doubt yourself, like, is this decision right, because it doesn't look the same as everyone else's decision. And similarly for timelines, like I had a very different childhood, and like I had experiences where you literally like retiring from all you've ever known at like before 20. Like what do you like, I had to recreate myself and create a new path, and that in some ways, my life had accelerated and I was very mature, and in other ways I'd missed this massive gap of like, like between like 10 and 18, like, what goes on there. And so there was always kind of this like to and fro. There was definitely people that I have found along the way that have been phenomenal mentors to me, that really stood back and kind of helped me become clear on who I was and what I really wanted, and help ask the right questions of me to bring that to the fore, rather than just kind of regurgitating what I thought I should say, which I think many of us can end up by doing. But it hasn't always been, sometimes from the outside it looks like, oh, she's, super confident, super sure, like, wow, like doing all this stuff on her own or whatever. And there's moments where I'm like, holy, like, moly, like, what am I gonna do? How do I do this? Like, it's all gone wrong. I think over time I have got better at like standing on my own 2 feet and just, backing myself, and certainly now in ultra running, and that has become like I've been like really strengthening that characteristic, I think. But it's not always been super easy.
Yeah, I'll bet. And what did you do when you first retired? Like, what was the transition? Like, was it more the career focus? Did you go and study something? Like, sort of talk us through that transition period.
Yeah, bumpy, as you imagine. So like literally the day I walked out, I literally did slam the door on the director of the company and just told him that I thought he was killing his dancers, which he was, like, really like mental. And I walked out into the rainy street of London in like some like horrible April night. It was like peeing it down, and I was like, this is just perfect. Like literally, like, and walked home, the slowest walk home. It was like 2K back to my house, and I was like, I don't know, it took me about 2 hours to do it, and just kind of going, oh God, like, what happens next? And to be honest, like, I took a week or two and I was just exhausted and drained and just didn't even know, what was what. But then I had the very real problem of, I had a house in London that I couldn't pay for. I was kind of 18, 19 years old. What the hell was I going to do? And somehow or other, I came across like this little leaflet for like a Pilates training course, like a Pilates instructor training course. Right. And I'd used Pilates during my like recovery from being unwell, and also my dance career. And I thought, well, maybe I'll just do something like that. Like, I still get a bit of dancing in there and whatever. And that's what I ended up doing immediately. Like, I got this little course. I saved up all the pennies from birthday money and, whatever, and paid for this course. And started a little like Pilates business, which was my first foray into business. It was quite successful. I ended up teaching like 16, 18 classes a week, and it managed to fund my living expenses at uni, where I ended up going. So yeah, on kind of parents' orders, I went off to uni and studied psychology at the University of Bath, which is an amazing sports university. There was lots of the Olympic centres are there. I think it's like 22 or something of the Olympic centres. So it's an amazing place. That was the main reason I chose it. Um, and during that time, it was kind of just like, I was just searching. Like I was searching for who I was, searching for a new introduction I could use when it was no longer like, I'm the ballerina. Like, what was I gonna, meeting all these people, like finding my feet again, being like having a bit of time, just being a kid, like kind of thing, and yeah, and during that time, I kind of was really looking for another channel to put maybe this competitive energy, but certainly the kind of athletic energy. Like you train pretty hard since the age of 4, you don't just stop.
Yeah.
And I had a cousin actually who had done an Ironman, and I was like, wow, what's an Ironman? She sounds like a hero. And I joined like the triathlon squad at my uni. And even though I was petrified of water, like petrified of water is in didn't really like the bath. Like I hated water. And like the idea of putting water in my face is like a no. And like I literally could not swim. But anyway, oh yeah, I didn't have a bike either, because ballerinas aren't really allowed to run or bike, whatever. I'd won a few cross countries at school because I was just generally fit and wanted to do that because it was easier to pretend to my dance teachers like I was at a dentist appointment because of the time. So it was just like, that kind of thing. Like, so yeah, so I kind of like vague had awareness of this movement pattern. But I thought it would be a fantastic idea to go and be an Ironman. Because I think underlying all of it was I didn't want people to think I was weak. I didn't want people to think I couldn't take ballet. And really, I stepped away because I felt it was kind of unjust by the second chance I'd been given at doing this thing called life. And I was the lucky one. And, staring at yourself in a mirror for 40 hours a week and being screamed at by Russian ballet teachers is not necessarily like fulfilling that gift you've been given. That's why I stepped away, not because I couldn't take it, I couldn't hack it. I didn't want to hack it. But there was this fear that like people thought I could, like I wasn't strong, or like, I couldn't, I just wanted to prove I had more. So anyway, so I kind of realized that maybe later down the line. But anyway, back to the story. I took up triathlon, which was a fantastically stupid idea. And I learned to swim using YouTube. So I'd watch videos in my dorm room and then go out to the 50-meter pool. 50-meter pool is a bloody long way when you're scared of water. So I only would do it with a wetsuit on because it was a bit of buoyancy to begin with. But I'd go and basically recreate the shapes I'd seen on YouTube. And as dancers, we're quite good at that, right? You see how to place your body and you put it in the water. And I managed to get like a little bit more confident and a little bit more cocky about my swimming ability, and try to like look underwater at the British swimming squad and like, oh well, they're keeping their legs like this, maybe I can do it. And like a few weeks in, I entered a little local triathlon, and was convinced I was going to win because, as mentioned, I don't like losing. Anyway, the gun goes off. And all these arms just start flailing. It's like washing machine. And I'm there, like, barely being able to float. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like terrifying. I had like a total panic attack. I walked the first swim. So it was in a lake that was shallow enough around the edge to like get around. But like, I go through this water, all 750 meters, around the outside of this lake in the shallows, covering myself in like duck poo. Got out, got on the bike. I was moving so slowly on the bike that I was convinced I had a puncher. So every single volunteer, around the 20K, because it was a sprint, right? 20K, like, do I have a puncher? Do I have a puncher? No, keep going. Anyway, got to the run, came second to last, and I was so cross. I really thought on that line. I was so bloody cross that I'd come second last. I was like, that's not even allowed. That I just decided there and then that if I was gonna win, I had to be unscared of water and learn how to swim and also get better on bike. So I did a bit of self-induced fear training, and every couple of days after that for the next 6 weeks, I would take myself off to a lake that was nearest our house and forced myself in the water. And by scared, I had like a proper phobia of open water. So I would literally like be crying and shaking, like
Oh my
trying to get
God.
in this water and just force myself in. And then I'd listen to like mindset stuff on the way home, like trying to like cure myself of this, water fear. And I used to like pretend that I was trying to make myself feel like at one with the water. I'd think of myself as an orca or a dolphin and like being supported by the water rather than fighting it. And I got to the stage where all I knew I had to do was control the first 3 breaths. If I could get the first 3 breaths into sync, then I could get my mind to slow down and things would flow and I could get round. That's how we kind of progressed. I managed to find a bike that wasn't a mountain bike, which was an improvement, and some hand-me-down tri-suits. And then the next race I entered was maybe 2 months later, was like Cardiff triathlon, and Cardiff's quite a big city in Wales. And this was not only open water, it was the sea, which was another step up. But on that race, I came first out of the water, got around the course, and ended up I think I took the win in that race, which was like my first realization that, okay, maybe this is something here. And I kind of like followed that momentum. And a few months down the line, I joined the British Triathlon Development Squad, which was kind of launching in Bath Uni, and went off to Euro Champs and got a silver there. And yeah, that was that. And pursued triathlon pretty seriously. I was really like gunning for the pro license. The plan A was to go off to Boulder, Colorado, and race up to the professional levels just before the pandemic. And the pandemic happened, and we all know what, nothing happened then. And eventually I moved to Spain to kind of pursue it a little bit more on the good roads out there. But ultimately realized that my love wasn't really in triathlon, and maybe some of the reasons were it was very much like extrinsic motivation to do it rather than a real love of it. And so gradually things kind of melted away on the triathlon side, and took a little bit of a pause after that.
So how many years ago are we talking when you sort of decided to step away from triathlon from your time in Spain?
Yeah, it was probably like 2023 kind of, or just end of 2023. Basically, like it was a really complicated in the pandemic. There was no races. I was not pro yet, and that was a year I was meant to turn. So I was in this wishy-washy in-between space. And I wanted to address a few kind of underlying kind of niggles and injuries I'd had from the ballet days, and it just kind of melted away. But I'd say kind of in 2020, end of 2022, 23, I took a bit of a step away from like high level racing. And it was kind of like discovering what I do then. I say I stepped away. I was still training like 15 plus hours a week, but for me that was like not that much. So, and really plowed a little bit more into the work side then. I moved back to the UK and was working in some pretty cool roles on that side, and some pretty tricky spaces in mining and supply chain and stuff like that. And did quite a lot of traveling as well. I went all over the world, which was kind of cool in that time. But really, I think that was the first time I'd kind of stopped and really understood what the last kind of 5 years had been for me. And coming through the backside of a pretty turbulent kind of teenage years into the ballet thing, and stepping away from 16 years of your identity into the rainy streets of London. Like, you think you're fine, you say you're fine, and like, oh, she's rock hard, she can do anything, and then you're not fine. Like, let's be honest, like you that's a lot, and it takes you a while. I think it takes your brain a while to realize the gravity of what's happened, and also then the kind of the whole whirlwind of the triathlon change and like learning a whole new thing, my body changing completely, like really saying goodbye to that ballerina physically as well. And I think in that time, it took far longer than I necessarily thought it would, but that was a huge like page turn mentally for me, and certainly in my identity and finding who I was. I think really finding who I was at the core, unlearning, some of the kind of the like I don't know, the veils I'd been putting on, over the last couple of years, and really getting much more clear on what I wanted from my days and my weeks and my years, and what I wanted from myself as well, and who I wanted to be, who I wanted to show up as in work, in life, with friends, in relationships, with my family. So yeah, that was a really important time, but yeah, maybe a little bit slow on the sports side. Yeah.
What did that reflection process look like? Like, I'm sure it continues to change as you get older and you garner new experiences, especially now that you're having this success in the ultra world. Like, how do you view your time as a ballerina and what that has done to shape you as a person?
Yeah, for a long time, it hurt so bad. I'd say it, but I didn't want to go any deeper. I could tell you I'm a ballerina. I was proud to be a ballerina, but that was, or maybe I wasn't proud, but I would tell you it, and then I'd try and change subjects. Later on, I definitely look at it incredibly fondly. People always like, it's all the endurance mindset, the athlete mindset. Like, yeah, stuff that. Try the ballerina mindset. Like, if you want people that are resilient buggers and like no grit and can go to depths in themselves and can push through broken toes to put a smile on their face and perform, and just unbelievable. Like, it's brutal. Like, it's not, oh, you didn't have good watts. It's like, you suck, you look rubbish. Like, it's all self. And then you compile that with, you're telling stories with your body and with the music that are incredibly like have incredible emotional depth, right? Like, you give your whole self in every way, and it's huge, and you do it from 4, 5, 6 years old. Like, it's incredible. And like I said, like I think it's taught me so much about self, like a lot. I think it's a lot about self-control and discipline, about willpower, about respect. Like, respect, we had a huge thing about respect just within the ballet culture. You cross your arms in front of a principal dancer and like you're out of that company. Like, it's like, it's really, there's a real kind of, you have to be very respectful, and also just the kind of every day showing up and doing the same ruddy plie like 29 times, and like in ultra sport or in endurance sport, like, you have these things called rest days, and like you have periods where you work hard and work less. In ballet, you don't really. You can't do it. You just do it again and again and again, and tomorrow again, and like you just do it again the next day. Like, there is, like, you just do it until you're perfect. And of course that's an elusive concept, right? So you keep going. So I think I learned a huge amount about that. The biggest gift I think I would also say, and I mentioned at the beginning, was my incredible dance teacher. Like I said, absolutely terrified of her at the beginning, and to this day I still call her Miss Sills. But like, she taught me so much, and she was my absolute rock through thick and thin. And she saw me like no one I think on the planet saw me. She knew how to push me to the absolute limit, but she'd hold me back fiercely, and she'd really like show me where the lines were, and I think that relationship was just so wonderful, and I will forever be grateful for having her in my life. And yeah, so I look in my long answer to your short question is, now as I get older, I look back on that as a real time of growth and learning, and an opportunity that I'm very aware that other people won't be gifted with, for good and for bad. But yeah, it definitely made me who I am. So,
do you ever regret walking away from being a ballerina? Maybe not so much specifically walking away from that production company, but like from the act of being a ballerina?
I always wonder what if.
Yeah.
There's always a what if. And there's many of those sliding doors moments, like the time I nearly joined the Royal Canadian Ballet, the time I nearly joined the French Royal Ballet. Like, there's many. I even considered Australian Royal Ballet at one point. or the Australian Ballet, I think they call it. But yeah, so there's many what ifs. Now, now I've found my absolute love of running. And I think, to be honest, there'd probably been a little girl that wanted to be a runner ever since she made obstacle courses and the Olympics, my dogs in the garden, and like was just free on the mountain, hurtling myself down the hillside. Like, I think there probably was another life that was always like, I always had that desire to run free, like quite literally. And so now I found this. In a weird way, it does make sense of how I ended up here. And I don't wish for a different now, but certainly when I was younger, I would have had a different answer.
Yeah, it's funny how those thoughts and feelings around your identity just continue to shift and evolve, right? And I guess, you know, when you are walking away from something that is all you know at that age, yeah, how do you go about processing that, you know? Like, I grew up, rugby league was my absolute identity, you know. I did not reach any great heights whatsoever. I was purely just someone who was obsessed with the sport, and I was never that good at it. But when it's part of who you are, you know, I had multiple joint reconstructions by the time I was 19, and pretty much decided that it wasn't going to be a good idea to continue. And I was just very fortunate, you know, much like you were saying about your physical build and just being a gift for being a ballerina. Like, I was just lucky that I was studying at the time, you know, a sports science degree, and I was working in the right academies and just got an opportunity to coach at the same time. So I was able to stay within the sport. And yeah, I often wonder who I would be and what I would have become for those sliding doors moments, you know, if you weren't given those opportunities at the right time from the right people, and those people that, you know, that you do have so much like love and affection for, that nurtured you, just like your teacher. And like, I could tell how emotional you were getting just thinking about her and what she's done for you, and obviously some of the dark times that she's helped you through. And, you know, like, I'm thinking about some people that have helped me that are no longer here as well. And it's crazy what people can do for you, and what a sport can do for you. And I very much share sort of the passion that you're now bringing to ultra running. And I think what's great is you don't always have to be, we were speaking off camera about this, you don't have to be at the top of the sport to have an influence on the sport. And, you know, you were saying you're very cognizant and grateful for the fact that you can't strive for the things that you want in the sport and get those things that you want without the back of the pack being there, paying their race entry fees and stuff as well, and being an active part of the community. I think it's such a cool full circle moment to sort of be able to show gratitude every which way that you can for who we are and how we're able to operate who we are in this given space. So I guess that leads me to, you know, we've done a fair sweep of past Jem. Like, what about now? Like, how did you decide that running an ultra was a good fucking idea? You know, and how you're now looking at scaling things with the early success. So I guess, give me an insight into like how you first stumbled across wanting to even tackle an ultra in the first place.
Nice. Yeah, awesome. And there's a couple of things there. The thing I really want to say is I'm a real believer that we must keep moving forwards. Like, everything in the world, including the world, keeps rolling, keeps moving forwards, keeps changing, keeps evolving. Why do we spend our time trying to keep stuck? Like, I was a ballerina for a long time, but I wasn't when, you know, eventually, and I had to move forward, and I had to shape shift, and I had to change. And, you know, we're not trees. If like our grass doesn't, or like our soil doesn't serve us, like, we can move, and we can find a new self. We can be someone different. We can explore. We can reinvent ourselves. And sometimes I haven't chosen to do that, but sometimes you absolutely can. I think that's my kind of journey into running a little bit, which I'll explain. But just, if I could share anything from my story, it's don't fear change or progression. Don't even see it necessarily like changed past and now. See, it's like just an evolution. We're all rolling, we're all moving. And if you don't fight it and are just able to embrace what's coming next, then kind of it can be a really beautiful thing, and you can discover new wonderful lives within your life that you get. And how cool is that? You don't just have to live one, you can live many. um so yeah, so I just wanted to, I think that was a big part of what helped me through ultimately, and
Beautiful.
what
I
I
love
kind of
that.
concluded in those years. But back into how I found running. Well, running kind of found me. Like I said, I always loved just running free. It was just freedom for me. And I had such a creative imagination as a kid. So I used to run around with the horses on the hillside, pretending I was, a red Indian, and all this stuff. It brought me so much freedom and joy, and just I just loved the feeling of the wind rushing on me, or the pouring rain. I just loved being in the elements, and I felt so close to the elements. I also later, in kind of the time when I was kind of the early 2020 to 2025 kind of time, I spent a lot of time in the Alps and in Switzerland through work, but just out of joy. And I'm never happier than in the mountains. And running there is just, you can go so far and you can see so much.
Yeah,
and
cool.
you can, yeah, that was just magical. So it'd always been there. And I dabbled with a few runs. I did one ultra, or not an ultra, it was off-road mountain run. It was only 23K, which to me now seems like a very short jog, in Mallorca, which was cool, and that was like
Hell
my
yeah.
first win. And then I did my first and only half marathon in Mallorca, and again I just come back from a bit of a foot niggle, and kind of only ran the second half of the race, but got my competitive spirit on and moved from 25th to first in that race. There's once it switches on, there's no stopping. But that was kind of cool. So there was a few things in there. That was kind of 2023 time when I was just starting to decide, 2023, 2024, when I was kind of deciding what I do next. But really, at the beginning of last year, beginning of 2025, in kind of Christmas time, I had got myself into a bit of a corner on the work side. I had some amazing opportunities in Switzerland, and also quite an interesting opportunity over in the US to go and pursue a role in a high scale tech company. And this was the kind of role that gets presented, and it's kind of life-changing opportunity that you move to kind of the States. You have a nice shiny paycheck, you have a prospect of a kind of a global tech career. This is pretty cool stuff. And at the time, nothing felt right really still. I think I knew a bit more about how I was, but I didn't know where she sat. I didn't know which country I wanted to be in. I'd explored around the world and seen so many beautiful things, which made coming home really, really hard because everything seems boring, but it's complicated moving around, and didn't know if I wanted to work myself, which industry I wanted to work. I was just still unsure where I sat. And I went and chased this opportunity in America, flew over to America. And when I got there, just one thing after the other just fell through, as is, very common in high-speed scale-ups. It's
Right.
not clear cut. And I found myself with a 10-day trip in America, and not the job outcome that I'd necessarily envisaged. And so I did what one does in that situation, which is hire a car and drive across America. So I drove from California to Colorado, which was fun and cold in the winter. But anyway, and landed in Boulder, where it was kind of funny because that's where I'd planned to be many years before. I spent a long time running in the mountains, and I just had some thinking time. And during that time, I literally bumped into a colleague who invited me to a birthday party that happened to be that night. And, as you do in the middle of nowhere, but a colleague from a past job that I'd done many years ago. And at that event, I met someone who ran MBA programs, business administration programs, for a university. And I kind of told her my predicament of I don't know what to do with myself. I don't know what direction I go in career-wise. And I don't know if I want to get back into sport. Maybe I just need a rest from professional sport and or elite sport, and just stop chasing and whatever. And she suggested I do an MBA program. And And I go, well, that's a silly idea. I don't really want to get back into academia, but I don't have much else to do. So, like maybe it's a good plan. And she goes, well, where would you do one if you wanted to do one? And I was like, well, I kind of want to go to Australia. But she was like, well, do it. And so at a random party in Colorado, it's just like, this is, hey, it's going to be a little bit spontaneous. I made that decision. But anyway, flew home. And had to somehow convince a MBA program, which was closed by several months, that they still needed to take me, and figure out a visa for Australia, which is also another complex progress, a kind of
so I hear.
Complex process. Yeah. So anyway, good old brilliant idea Jemima puts off all these things and sends them to the universe to decide. At which point I go, oh my God, it's March. I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm living out of a kind of a suitcase because I don't know which country I'm going to be in. Do I go back to Spain? Do I go to Switzerland? Do I go to the US? Where do I go? What am I doing for work? What sport am I even training for here? Or am I even training for sport? What do I do? And I decided that the last, the period had been so wishy-washy. I needed to achieve something during that time, make it worth it. And I went over to my mum's house, she's in the Lake District in the UK, which is a very beautiful mountainous area. It's kind of like a very mini New Zealand. Really is stunning, underrated. People don't know about it, so here's a little marketing ploy for the Lake District. And I found an ultra running route, which was 52k, I think, which is one of the ultras down there. There's some pretty big races and some sky runs and stuff. It's pretty gnarly terrain up there.
Yeah.
And I decided that, I should, achieve something. So even if nothing came of all of these, the application I just set off and this job didn't come, I'd done something with that time. So put all my water in my back and all my snacks. I think I ended up with 8 kilos on my back, and did this route, and just one kind of Saturday, drove myself there, went round. It took me 8 hours or something. 3,500 meters of climb. Got back to the car, absolutely knackered, and looked at my time, and I realised that actually I would have won the race if I'd done it in the race. But I was unsupported, and stopped for snacks and whatever. And I just had this amazing wake up call of I loved that time. I absolutely loved being in the mountains, and I just had this whole thing come over me of just this is what I should do. This is what I should do. It kind of fell to me, and it was such a brilliant something to grip onto when so much of my life is uncertain. I'd just been able to do the thing, and how awesome. So anyway, after that, it was kind of the magical key. A few days later, my kind of visa came through, the university accepted me, and off I went, literally a few days later, as in visa arrived on the Sunday and I was in Australia by the Saturday. So it was
wow.
These people that plan moving across the world for a long time, into a bag, off I go to Australia. And at which point I decided that running was going to be it. But it was a bit of a rocky start. I started, so that was only last year, right? So my first non-official ultra was last March, or last April even. Yeah, March, April. Got to Australia in May, started training with a new coach, and that coach, which shall not be named, took me from zero, little runs here and there, and past life as a triathlete, as a half Ironman, you're kind of only running up to 21k ever. But I went from maybe 75k weeks to 165k weeks within 2 months, and ended up with a stress fracture, which was my first and hopefully last experience of that kind of injury. So I only really got back.
Where did you get your stress fracture?
Tibia. It was it was a grade 3 stress fracture in my right tibia, which was painful. And even though I did ignore it for some time, but deep heat doesn't actually fix fractures, I found out. I did try on several occasions, but deep heat is not the answer. So anyway, I got back to training in about, really, I was allowed to put weight on it in about November. It's kind of, it really cracked in about September, and then October, November, and then, December started training with a new coach, with now my current coach, Simon Cochran, who's not like the previous one. He was amazing. And we just started working and worked hard, went over to New Zealand in January for a bit of a non-official training camp, getting up the miles. And then February, I had my eyes on Tarawera, which was the most amazing first official ultra you could imagine.
How cool.
On a very wet day.
Yeah, I heard all about it. It sounded
yeah,
like
luckily it was
sludge.
a bit drier than ours, but yeah, it was like quagmire for others. But yeah, and baptism of fire, like you go off at like 340, 345 pace, you're like, holy like moly, is this gonna last?
Yeah.
But managed to take second in that one, which was a shock as much to me as I think to everyone else. Yeah, it was just a beautiful entry into the sport. I met the most beautiful people on the finish line that I'm still friends with, and
awesome.
And then that kind of set the tone. So yeah.
That's so cool. And then what sort of spawned the interest on going longer? Like, is it just like a natural progression for you, or you just wanted to sort of experiment with the challenge of going big?
Yeah, definitely interested in challenge. I think my absolute favorite distance is like 50 miles, like near 80k, because it's still fast enough, but long enough also because I'm not a VO2 superstar. Like I just long and slow forever, like kind of thing. So it's an interesting one. We are still finding where I'm going to be best put. 50s are rapid, like people that say ultra runners are slow, like need to see a 50k. Like those are rapid, and that's going to take some more time to build the strength and resilience there, and just the kind of speed and turnover. 100k is a slightly different sport. There's a lot of it's mental, and I know that I can suffer well. And now I know I can suffer for much longer and harder than I thought I could. So yeah, it's an exploration. We'll see where we go.
What was going through your head throughout that race? Like, were you paying much attention to where you were sitting in the field at the Guzzler, and like sort of what was driving you forward? What was your inner monologue like?
Yeah, good question. So I knew I'd be at the pointy end, and I was aware of kind of where the kind of start line was. For me, I don't now look at the women's field. I look at both fields, and I wanted to be up. If I was going to be up there, I wanted to be up there overall, and so it was competing against some of the guys. I think I wanted to lead for as long as I could, and I was leading for nearly 64k or something, like, or just under, which I was pleased about. But I did also know that I'd never experienced beyond 7 hours of running in my life, right? So it became very apparent that I need to run my own race, and anything can happen, right? Like you can be leading and then you drop, like I did at UTA, or like, you know, or come like high up and drop even at the last moment, or you can do the other way around if you're really slow at the beginning and have a second wind. Like, we don't know. So it was very important to do left foot, right foot, and focus on now. So I really break it down. Like, I was going aid station to aid station, concentrating on my nutrition, just totally met the fact that my legs were so painful that there was no way in hell that they would be any more painful. So it was just a case to embrace it and like plow on. And yeah, it was just trying to just keep moving. I did get a little bit disheartened when I had, you know, the second guy. I was in second for a long time, and then someone else did come by me. But at that stage, it was just controlling what I could control, and that was myself. So the deeper you went into the race, the more it became about keeping in my own bubble. But the absolute number one objective of that whole race was I made a very, very firm decision before I went in and in the prep that I was going to be a person I wanted to be in the pain. And that was someone that was grateful for this opportunity and to have the body, and the like total absurdity of putting myself there, and like how freaking awesome that, you know, what a privilege to be out there with all these amazing humans, like meeting themselves and challenging themselves in this beautiful, beautiful environment. Like, I needed a smile on my face as much as I could. And that was just the number one thing I came back to every moment.
Yeah, so that was a conscious effort to just sort of seek gratitude when things were sucking.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, I had these phrases
it was run with purpose. And although my dad in the morning did actually send me a message going run with and then dolphin emoji, so it became run with porpoise, which made me giggle,
Yes,
which
Dad,
was kind of
thanks,
fun.
man.
Yeah,
It was good. It's like you do find these things hilarious when you're oxygen and glucose deprived. So yeah, it was like just run with purpose, and my purpose was to be someone I wanted to be and get through that race and like explore new depths of myself. But it was a conscious decision. Yeah, it was a conscious decision. And you had the chance to listen to kind of the side of you that wants to give up and sit down, and you have the other chance that is that fighter in you and that kind of angel willing you on. And I made the decision to choose that one.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was harder during that race that was perhaps unexpected, or like did it sort of meet the expectations of your version of hard?
Good question. Now, I think when I went into it, the concept of running 106K was so bananas to me, like bonkers, even standing on the start line, that I don't think I had let myself think too heavily about it. Like,
Okay.
I knew it was going to hurt, but I also didn't want to fear the hurt. The thing that was unexpected was this very random cramp that I got within like 2K in, which made the day a little bit harder. So we'd been experimenting with some nutrition things. I started a new nutritionist, and I'm still working out all that stuff. Like, I'm a baby in the sport, so I need more time to try all these things. But I experienced pretty severe cramps from like 2K in, and I got 104K to go. Like, that's like quite a long way. So that was a little bit unexpected, and some of my plans on downhills to really push it kind of didn't quite, come forth. The other little unexpected thing was the lack of aid stations for like 4 hours in the middle of the race, where my needing water. I was just thinking also like, geez, it's taking me like 3-4 hours. What about people that are slightly slower? Like, what are they doing?
Yep.
That was hard. And then that, of course, when you drop hydration, it's just hard to get back when your body's like that. Definitely descents, like uphill, like, oh my gosh, they're great. Like, absolutely, give me an uphill when you're in an ultra. Downhills are like excruciating.
I think that's such a misnomer for the average people. Like, even people who may have done a heap of road running and are looking to transition. It's the downhills, and like some of the scientific stuff that I brought up on the podcast, the solo ones. It's all looking at that. It's that fatigue resistance from all the downhills, and
Eccentric loading.
Yeah, when we look at, race profiles, it's how much vert's in the race. Like, we're all so obsessed with how much we're climbing. Yeah. It's like, cool, we can replicate that. We can sit on an inclined treadmill, but it's like, if you're not getting that downhill exposure, not only from a physiological perspective, but just from a skill perspective, learning how
100%.
to run downhill effectively and efficiently, and to not have fear, it's such a difficult thing to overcome. And 100%. I think a lot of people don't prepare enough for it. So it sounds like you've done an amazing job preparing physically to be able to suffer well through 100Ks. Because, as much as people sort of flip to the other side, and you're already empathic, thinking that, what about these people that are slower and taking longer? So there's that time horizon there. But I think anyone trying to think that they have any idea of what it's like to actually run and compete at the level that you guys do is insane. Like, I can't imagine what it's like to run the majority of that course. Like, it's such a fucking brutal course. The township break, like, no, yuck. What is that?
It was actually, I had a total splat down township break because my legs kind of lost sensation at that point, and like, you don't have full control. And I totally I nearly did a roly-poly. It would have been quite humorous to get on video, really. But I ended up on my bottom, and I was like, oh, this is so nice. Like, the first time I sat down today, it was like, I just had a moment. I was like, oh no, wait, in a race, let's go. But yeah, no, so true. There's two things I think are really hard about downhill. Number one is just getting the eccentric loading and just that training and fatigue resistance in the muscles. And the second bit, which is kind of part of that, is the pacing.
right? So if you thrash yourself downhill because it feels great, you're going to really struggle on the uphill, and you're going to get a lot of lactate, and it's hard to clear, and like all the things. And definitely, I made the pacing mistake at UTA on that one, which is a big like learning and so forth. But yeah, downhill is definitely harder, for sure. In terms of the kind of like how hard it is, you know, to go through. Okay, yeah, it is hard to run at the pace I do. Like I appreciate that I am running relatively quick, and you know, the start it was pretty strong pace even on that terrain. For me, there is power hiking. There's like I definitely use power hiking, particularly towards the end. I had no choice at some point, but you do use that a lot. But I would just say as well, I finished that race in 12 hours, had a nice lie down in the medical tent, and you know, was home. And the next day at the prizes, and there were people still bloody well finishing their race. And okay, it's cool what I did. How unbelievably insane, like I don't even know how you even can do it, to run for like 28 hours. Like a different level of like respect goes to those people, to be out there through like the rain, through the cold, through the night. Like I was only running for like a few minutes in the dark. Like unbelievable. It never ever gets easier, it just gets faster. Like that, it becomes so evident. But yeah, and it's also very like, it's amazing how quickly you can lose a few seconds here, a few minutes there, and like suddenly by the end of the race you're like an hour and a half slower than, you know, you can lose a lot of time with small margins. Yeah, and so like when I'm running through aid stations, like I'm trying to do it in like, most of the aid stations are like 70 seconds or something like that, because like you can so easily have a nice little sit down and chit chat, and it's like, oh, bloody hell, like that record's out of bye record, you know.
Gone,
so yeah.
It sounds like you've got a really good relationship with your current coach Simon, and you know, you're trying to figure out what distance is sort of suited to you at the moment. Is there any rush or attractant to go bigger? Like you were sort of saying that you have the respect for people who are running through the night. Is there an allure there to go to that, you know, next step up of like that 100-mile distance or something like that? Or do you think you really want to hone your craft around this 50-mile to 100K? And like, what are you sort of looking at as like a time horizon for your career and what you want to achieve in the sport?
Yeah, I think, so for me, like, there's a lot more pace I need to get, and just more reps, right? Like, need to do more races, and need to practice nutrition, and need to, learn be against different competitors, and different races are played out in different ways. There is absolutely aspiration to do the 100 milers. Like, of course, like everyone, I'd love to do Western States and UTMB, and to get there, I need to qualify through, you know, maybe through some hundreds or so forth. So definitely that's on the cards, maybe 2028, you know, looking at that horizon. I've got CCC next year, which will be a great 100K, and maybe even looking at kind of Comrades, and definitely Tarawera again, and so forth. So some interesting ones. And long term, I want to look at kind of FKTs as well. And that's a whole, you know, different profile. So it definitely will grow. If you ask me like 5 minutes after the Guzzler, I'd be like, no, you can go do one if you ask me to run any further than this. Like, no way. But they are different, you know, they're just different races in so many ways, different demands. I think, you know, just being really like honest and open, and I think it's really important conversation to have. Like, I'm turning 30 in September, and, you know, I also have goals for kind of family and other things. And this is also a piece of the puzzle, and it's something that I'm being really kind of open and proactive at talking about, and hopefully, like, it's kind of scary to say out loud, but like I hope it also helps other people in my position kind of just be able to say it and think about it, or talk to their partners or whatever. Like, you know, maybe racing some of these races isn't super compatible to you know, having a family and other things, and maybe you want to come back, and there's absolutely possibility to come back after those times, but you gotta think about it proactively. And when you are going at the elite level, you do have to look, okay, when might be a time to take a little bit of a pause, or like, you know, what could we look at to achieve those goals in, you know, in the before and after, or how might things shift. And I'm certainly like aware of some of the absolutely amazing super mums like racing and coming back and smashing it more than they did before. And so I want to, I'm holding holding plans loosely to see where things kind of go. But hopefully, yeah, next year, a nice consolidation year of 50 to 100K, maybe 2028, kind of, yeah, really getting up these big distances. And then, yeah, we'll see what the world serves up after that.
Exciting, man. And is the plan to sort of stay stationed out of Australia, or would you consider going overseas or heading back home or something like that? Like, what sort of level of thinking have you put forward for your career in that sense?
Yeah, I mean, really honestly, like it is really tricky training in Australia. Just we
Yeah.
don't have the mountains.
No.
Simon's based over in New Zealand, and I hope I get the chance to go out there quite a lot. So I hopefully do more of that. I'll be in Europe next summer with the big races, and popping home this kind of winter time, well, winter in the UK to see
Yep.
my family, and they're based in an awesome spot. A lot of it also depends kind of on how I am with kind of supporters or any brands that can back me as well, because obviously it's a to be able to travel around the world, and also therefore a little bit trickier with working and other ways. Like there's definitely these questions, and I'm really in that transition phase now of, okay, I'm kind of stepping up into a really serious circuit and maybe starting to align to go, fully professional in the near future. But it's just how to make that reality. So stepwise, but certainly for the initial period, I will be here. So I'm in New South Wales at the moment. Spend a lot of time in Queensland, up in the beautiful Sunshine Coast and so forth, which is great for training, and a couple of training partners up there as well, which means the world. Yeah.
Oh, mate. Well, we can't wait to see how it all plays out, and we'll be cheering you on. And I hope that every opportunity continues to present itself in a positive manner, and that you do turn professional, because you've obviously got the potential there, and no doubt you're going to use all that experience that you've taken from being a ballerina, like you were saying, and using that to position like, oh, this is nowhere near as hard as some of the shit that I've endured. And I think any time that you can use previous experience to help you through those hardships, and just zoom out a lot and look at life on a bigger time horizon, so to speak. And
Yeah.
I think there's so much to be drawn from other previous chapters in our life, and whether that's taking things a little less seriously here or more seriously there, it all looks to serve you as a person, because after all, like, we are more than just the sport itself, like we're human beings.
So true.
And yeah, we're all just doing our bloody best, So, mate, thank you so much for coming on the podcast and sharing a bit about yourself. I'm definitely going to be keeping tabs on how your career progresses, and I'd love to have you back on heading into CCC and everything about that race. So that'd be great.
That'd be awesome. Well, thank you so much. This chance to kind of share a little bit more, and a couple of new stories there I don't think any I've shared before. So yeah, really, really nice, and actually a really great chance to reflect a little bit as well. So I'm very appreciative, and hope there are a few nuggets in there for people listening on their long runs, like I normally am.
Alrighty, Jem. Thanks so much, mate. You take care, and we'll chat next time.
Thanks.
Thank you.